Hello, welcome everybody. And today I would like to introduce you to my very special guest, Coach Gail Jones. I worked myself with her last year. She helped me a lot. And I would like to ask you, Gail, could you talk a bit about yourself for our viewers to know who you are?
Sure.
And what you do.
Okay, and I'll keep it brief. I'm a worthiness coach and a prosperity coach and an EFT practitioner, as well as an author. But I think what's more important to benefit the audience is to know that I got a wake-up call through cancer to claim my worthiness and rebranded my whole business around worthiness, because most of us have an issue with worthiness that impacts our life at many levels.
Thank you very much. Then may I ask you, if I recall, you were a very successful lady, you were very busy. Would you talk a bit about what you were doing when you were very successful before other things happened?
Sure. So I was a coach. I've been a coach for 20 years, but I was coaching on Boston radio at the time. And shortly thereafter, in 2008, was the recession, when a lot of people lost income, including myself, because coaching isn't usually covered by insurance. I don't take insurance, and it was considered a luxury. And also during that time of thriving, I ended up going into survival mode because of that recession. And also I was assigned legal guardianship of my schizophrenic mom. I had 2 teenage children that I was a single parent to. And somebody owed me a significant amount of money that withheld that money. So I was scrambling. And what's really important to understand for everybody listening today, especially our emotional stressors, I was just pushing to get by. And now what we know through my healing journey through breast cancer is my second opinion breast surgeon, as well as another healer, said they were seeing a significant trend that the 3 years before a woman is diagnosed with breast cancer tend to be off the charts stressful years. And it certainly was for me. I just shared my stressors, which were a curveball to reinvent myself, which I'll talk about later. But when I was in the mind-body program for cancer at Mass General Hospital, intense training I did, I interviewed many people for my book, which is called Cancer as a Love Story, which I'm going to talk about in a little bit, read from a section. But I asked every one of the participants, what were their 3 years like before they got diagnosed with cancer? Some of them had other forms of cancer, not breast cancer necessarily. And every one of them had real high stress, whether it was a divorce, whether it was a financial shakeup like I went through, whether it was a death of a loved one or caretaking of elder parents at the same time as younger children. So when you're in the stress, this is the key message I'm so grateful that Anne wants to share with you, is you want to deal with the stressor in your life, but you also need to deal with the stress. So you don't want to wait until the stressor is resolved, till you get your finances back, or till you have childcare help, or till you get the next step. You want to deal with the stress the minute it comes up. And we're going to share a little bit more about that today.
Yeah, definitely. Because I think in my case, with the problem with my heart, I think would I have dealt with that long ago, it might have never happened.
Right.
And I still believe it might have never happened, but
right.
It was.
And a lot of us are taught or conditioned to repress our emotions. And especially as women, we're conditioned to give to others at the expense of ourselves. So we're so sometimes focused on nurturing others that we don't even know what our needs are until they get to the point where we're so stressed out that we realize, boy, my needs aren't being met here. So I think it's really important to have love and compassion for ourselves for the way we were conditioned in younger life.
And it's a learning experience too.
Absolutely.
because we have no idea how to do that. Me, I'm so grateful that I did find heart maps and I did learn how to deal with any depleting emotions, get into neutral. And then instead of reacting to things, it gave me a choice to respond.
Right.
But I really had to look into it, and doing the journaling in the evening, that helps me see recurring pattern that comes more or less from the same root.
Right.
But it shows up in different situations.
Right.
And I was reacting like, I had to learn that, and I'm so, so grateful. I'm so grateful I met you.
Thank you. Emotional regulation is something a lot of us have to learn. But here's one other piece that isn't often taught, and it's giving ourselves permission. And this is key. We have to give it to ourselves. Nobody can give it to us. No training can give it to us. We have to give ourselves permission to be a priority. And I love this quote, and I wish I knew who it was from, because I use it all the time, and I love to attributing my sources, but I don't know who it came from. But being centered in self is not the same as being self-centered. And Anne, having been a former airline pilot, you'll realize the metaphor of, put your own oxygen mask on first before you can help somebody else. Well, we don't really do that in life. A lot of us women and men, learning to put yourself first and make yourself a priority is absolutely necessary. And you're the only one that can give yourself permission to do that. And unfortunately, for many of us, it's not till we get a wake-up call like cancer that we learn to do that. I had to make myself a priority in order to heal my body. My health became my number one priority. And that was a huge mind shift, having been conditioned. I mean, I love being a mom. I love being a nurturer. I love being a coach. And I had to put myself in the equation in a higher way.
That's wonderful. I think
and the irony is, the more you give to yourself, the more you have to give others, because you're giving.
The more you can give.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, if we don't love ourselves, how can we love anybody else?
Right. But that's where tapping comes in. I told you, I'm an EFT practitioner. We've done work together. But as soon as I'll say that to a lot of people, they go, I feel so guilty. I can't do it. I feel so guilty giving to myself. It's so hardwired. So when you're doing tapping, which is emotional freedom technique, I help the client tap around to release the guilt that's hardwired in. So I love having these modalities that can really create shifts pretty instantly, just like you do your meditations with heart math. We don't have to hold the stress in our body, or the limiting beliefs, or the early conditioning. Get it out.
Get it out, yeah. I couldn't agree more. Now, would you mind talking about what happened when you went to see the doctor, finally?
Sure.
So how did you realize you had a problem? And then you went to see the doctor, and what happened?
I was just having a routine breast exam. And I have fibrocystic breasts, so sometimes I have to do another mammogram. But this day was very different. I got called down the hall way and put in this room, offered cookies and coffee. And in pops a social worker, a nurse manager, and I go, something's not right here. And I knew, and my whole body was shaking inside. And then the radiologist, very cold, stoic man, just the coldest human being you can look at, tells me that it seems cancerous. And first response is shock, and then denial, the stages of grief. But then I just wanted to deny it could possibly enter my body. And I said, are you sure? Could this be a cyst? And he said, no, it's not a cyst. So then I broke down in tears. And I'd like to just read that passage from the book, because I feel like, as painful as it was, I feel like that day broke me open to repressed emotions I'd held in for years. Like, I can't hold it together anymore. This is just too much. So were you okay if I just read this, Anne?
Yes, please.
Okay. So could it be a cyst? I asked desperately, pleading that the radiologist would change his mind. Looking grimly at me, the doctor said it was much more serious than that. The tears and terror squelched too long. From hours of waiting came gushing forth. I sobbed. This can't happen to me. I'm a single mother with 2 teenage children. I've already been through enough challenges in my life, and so have they. This why me victim mentality was prompted by excruciating levels of vulnerability at the most raw moment of my life. I saw briefly a scary picture in my mind of my kids becoming motherless and of me not being able to watch them grow into adults. The nurse manager listened as I absorbed the shock of the cancer diagnosis. So I was surrounded by people in a room, and I was supported and able to be gushing these tears. But it was a really breakthrough moment in my life to say, I can't hold it in anymore.
The one thing I notice is the doctor was very harsh, and
Yes. Cold.
I do not approve, because I think it's tough enough on people's emotion to get news like that. And I think there's a way of doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of them, they just give you a sentence. Oh, you
Right.
got a problem. And
right.
I think it stinks, if you ask me.
Well, even what you realize when you get into the medical system, and I don't want to talk too much about this, I want to talk about healing these emotions, which we can, I can give you some great insights right now. But they're a team, they're a medical team. Like even the social worker was drilling down on all these questions like, do you live alone? Are you separated? Are you married? Are you divorced? What's going on? Instead of saying, I'm concerned for you, do you have any support? Which was she's really was asking, but she didn't ask that. So she's asking all these questions, and I'm just overwhelmed with trying to answer these questions instead of, is anybody in this room going to show an ounce of care and support? I'm trained to do that as a coach. You're trained to do that. And I'm just sitting there at the most vulnerable moment of my life, answering questions and looking at a cold stone face. So, we're not here to change the medical system today, but I know that love and compassion heals, and I bring it to my work, and you do too, Anne. So, but I had to give myself love and compassion that day, probably for the first time in my life when I had to start learning to do that.
That reminds me, Lynn McTaggart, she had her mom had breast cancer, and it looked very, very bad. And the first time she went to see a doctor with her mom, the doctor said, oh gosh, that looks awful. You've got 6 months to live. And Lynn, being Lynn, say, I'm not having that. She went to see another doctor who looked at the same breast with the same condition. And he said, that's no problem. We'll heal that, no problem at all.
Right.
And he was so supportive. And that is all the difference.
Right. You want to be aligned with people that support your choices and your outcome, no matter what, whether it's cancer, whether it's growing a business. You want to be in alignment with people of capacity. And people of capacity have the ability to see you when you're soaring and when you're down, because it's not a straight line either way. So that's a big word I would ask people in learning to be emotionally intelligent with themselves, is to choose to build relationships with people of capacity. And that might mean letting go of some that have been in your life. It might mean adding new ones, but generally it means it's a smaller circle.
But it's so much better.
It's so much better.
There are people supporting you.
Right.
And there are people that are going to help you go where you want to go.
Right. And one of the things,
I think for the other one, they tend to like the way you were because they don't want you to move on. it
Right, because
disturbs
it's
them.
a threat to people when you move on because they don't have the
Yeah.
courage to do what you're doing. It's all subconscious, but yes. But one of the things that the Mind Body Program for Cancer did, which was great, we never even talked about the word cancer. It was all about the mindset for thriving. And one of the things they had us do right away is create a circle diagram of who's in your circle. And that was very helpful because, especially when I was a single mom, realizing I was winging a lot of it alone. I didn't have extended family and I had to build circles, and I continue to build circles. And every time we upgrade or up level, we change our circles or extend our circles or refine our circles. But having a circle of support is so key to mental health and dealing with our stressors. And so part of that is I'd say this is the biggest shift, is allowing ourselves to be vulnerable and saying we need help and asking for help. We're not meant to do this life alone. And, what I teach in my worthiness piece is you can take all the classes in the world, and you and I know this, Anne, you can read all the books in the world. You will not ingrain a greater sense of worthiness unless you are lovingly witnessed. Because the reason you don't feel worthy, and it's not your fault, you just didn't get the basic conditioning the first 7 years of life, and we're not here to beat up on anybody. But in order to feel worthy, we have to be seen, heard, validated, and acknowledged. And that's why it helps to have a loving and compassionate person doing that for you.
I couldn't agree more. You helped me with that so much. So
thanks, Anne.
Thank you, Gail. And then what did you do apart from that program? I think you went to see Joe Dispenza.
Mm-hmm. I trained with him personally in Arizona. And I've also read all his books, and I taught meditation classes related to his work. But the benefit of working with Dr. Joe back then, 10 years ago, or, after that, was learning that we have the ability to create the thoughts that can change the biology of our body. And we do that with clear intentions plus elevated emotions. And I'm going to talk a little bit about elevated emotions in a minute if we have time.
Of course.
But that's really important, to set an intention. Okay, I'm going to be healthy, or I'm going to be calm, or I'm going to succeed in this challenge in my life, or I'm going to be better or stronger for it. But when you're in the stress, you don't know the elevated emotion. You only know the fear, the doubt, the anger, right? You're immersed in it. So I want to teach you some of those elevated emotions in a minute. But the other piece of that is, and we all hear about law of attraction, your energy, your vibe attracts the vibe. Well, it's hard to be in a high vibe when you're in the midst of something very difficult. So the other piece of healing is you must do the inner child work and reparent that little child within. And I'll go back to me. After I did a lot of reflection after the diagnosis, my intuition, and I've learned to really value my intuition, is that the reason I got breast cancer was because I had a schizophrenic mom, and I was in fight or flight most of my life. I was so scared. Outwardly, I looked really successful. Before I was a coach, I was a high-tech PR exec. I've been an author. I'm very widely read. I've been in major magazines, newspapers, TV. But inside was still that scared little girl. There was nothing. You can't just do the law of attraction and say, I'm going to manifest this beautiful home, and inside you're terrified. And I'll even give an example of before I went on national TV for the first time with my worthiness platform, I had to sit down with my inner child, and I had to reassure her whether people liked the interview, didn't like the interview, were resentful that I shared some personal information in the interview. I was going to love that inner child. So I made a deal with her. So I say to all the people that you have to honor that inner child's a relationship you're going to have the rest of your life. It doesn't go away. And nobody can give you what you didn't get besides you. And that's the tough lesson to learn, that you have to go reparent yourself. There's no spouse, there's no job, there's no career that can fill you up. And this is another amazing thing. A lot of the most successful people have the greatest sense of unworthiness because they're using externals to define them when worthiness has to come from within. And so anybody listening here, you are worthy to feel your emotions, to have your emotions, to heal your emotions, and to make yourself a priority in the healing. You deserve it.
That's a lovely insight, Gail. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Is there any other insight you'd like to give to people?
Just that it's really important to heal the stressors. Like, don't just suck it in. And the one mistake I made, which I haven't made since, but I'll make other mistakes in my life, many, I'm sure. But when I first got diagnosed and with my kids and other people, when you go in and have a lumpectomy, which is what I had, and I did an alternative route after that, but you're in the hospital and then you come home the same day. So to people around you, they just assume it's like you got a tooth pulled. Okay, the tumor's gone. Your psyche's been changed forever. It's not the tumor's gone. You've lost your innocence about your mortality. You're shook to the core. Your psyche's changed forever. So, but again, what I did, because I had two kids and I didn't want to scare them, and I was lucky it was early stage then, but I didn't want to scare them. I didn't want to put them through the journey, but I was very stoic, and I didn't let anybody really know how scared I really was. And I would just say, anytime in your life when you're being stoic and you're scared, stop, because this is what happens when you're stoic. And I did it, sucked my way through my high-tech PR career too. We have to be professional, yes, but we have to acknowledge our needs. When we are stoic to those around us, what happens is we don't get our needs met because nobody knows what our needs are. Nobody knew I was scared and needed a hug. That's what I wanted more than anything in the world, was a hug. Anything. But there I was, I didn't want my kids to come tumbling down. I looked out for them. I talked to their teachers, made sure, especially my son, he was in high school, made sure the guidance counselor was aware of things. But I should have let people know that I was more fragile than I was. There's nothing wrong with being vulnerable. That's how we get support. And also, when you're stoic, you're repressing your feelings. And repressing our feelings gets us sick. So let go of being stoic is one thing. And then the other thing is, when you've done the clearing work on your stressors, it is really important to learn about elevated emotions, because especially we've all been through a traumatic time in the world with the pandemic and so much fear and so much anxiety. And so when you tell people to get an elevated emotion, they're like, yeah, right. Look what we've just been through. Right. But we have the capability to get in an elevated emotion. And so I want to list what some of the elevated emotions are. Obviously, love is one of them. So we can choose whether to live in love or fear. Like my book is called Cancer as a Love Story, Developing the Mindset for Living, which is what Dr. Joe teaches, how to get into that mindset. And you and I teach as well, Anne. So I would just say to make sure that you learn what the elevated emotions are and pick them. So every morning you can get up. If you stay regurgitating what hasn't worked, you're just going to attract more of that, which is one of the reasons, like, I don't like when people, like, I have people share all their stories with me at the beginning so I can see the patterns, but we don't keep on talking about them, because the more you talk about them, the more you're going to attract that. So how do you change it? Some of the clear intention, elevated emotion. So joy is another one. Awe and wonderment. So instead of, like, we're all in the unknown now in this world, most of us are greatly, our systems, our people, everything. Instead of being scared of the unknown is actually the greatest place to create anew. It is the most profound place to create anew. So if you can treat it with awe and wonder, like, I wonder how my life is going to unfold, or in awe of, like, beauty of nature, those emotions immediately raise you up. Excitement, excitement and fear feel the same in the body. So before you're going to make a presentation, a lot of people have a fear of speaking, right? Well, can I be excited about sharing my knowledge with the world? So it's a shift. And you can train your brain to go to the elevated emotions. And one of the ways you train your brain to go to the elevated emotions is to try to stay in an elevated emotion for 15 minutes. Can I stay in 15 minutes of joy today? When you see something that gives joy, or a memory of joy, or a memory of love, or a memory of wonderment or excitement. So you have the power to choose your emotions. But I keep on saying it's a fine line, because you want to choose the elevated emotion, but you don't want to repress the negative. They have to be felt to be released. You just don't bypass them. If we are feeling sad, feel the sadness and release it. If you're feeling angry, feel the anger and release it, but then set elevated emotions. You don't want to stay stuck in them.
That is absolutely wonderful. And I couldn't agree more. That's what I do every day because it has changed my life.
Right.
And I wouldn't be without it, because instead of being scared and feeling small, etc., I'm just happy I can start new things. It gives me possibilities that without doing all that, I would never have, because I would not take them on.
Right. Excellent.
So
Excellent.
that is so lovely, Gail. Thank you. Thank you.
And I would just say, having a daily morning practice, like I spend an hour alone in the morning before I do anything. I meditate, and then I have 3 questions I ask myself. Do you want to know what they are?
Please.
I do an exercise around what am I going to let go of? What do I need to let go of? And it's usually what happened the day before. So I do letting go. The second thing I do is I don't get out of bed until I write down 10 things. 10 things every day that I'm grateful for. And it can be, I live by a lake, and it can be this cloudy day, or the birds singing, or it could be landing a contract, or getting 5 new clients, or it could be an insight I gained. But every day I come up with 10 new ones first thing in the morning. And then the third one is 3 things I'm going to focus on today. Sometimes it might be self-love. Sometimes it might be getting my taxes done. Sometimes it might be bringing joy to the world, or I live and work alone like you. And it might be I'm going to work at a coffee shop today to build connection. So, or the focus on could be ways I'm going to triple my income this year. So it can vary, but those are my 3 things I do in addition to the meditation. And then I do a grounding exercise, which I teach my clients, which is pretty powerful. And I try to spend time in nature every day. Nature is so healing.
It is indeed. I'm very lucky here. I live, there is a ground just in front, but there's all the trees around, a kind of mini forest, and I can go and walk there.
Nice.
It's just outside the house, and it takes 2 minutes to get there. I can do the walk, it takes 30 minutes.
Excellent.
And it makes such a difference.
Right. And just one other thing, Anne, and I know because you teach meditation a lot, this is really important. We need stillness in our lives. Stillness is where we become our new selves. It's not the doing. And don't be afraid of stillness. Treat stillness as a friend. Stillness will give you your greatest answers, your greatest insights. It will allow you to tune into your intuition. When we're running around and doing the old model of success, push, 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 drive, 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 that doesn't work. We just keep on squelching and squelching and squelching and squelching those emotions. So when you get to stillness and you get ideas of what you're supposed to do next, you're doing them from inspired action versus an old to-do list that is just exhausting. So I would look for inspired actions through stillness.
I love stillness. I got a book about stillness that I've been reading lately.
Excellent.
It's a wonderful book. I could go and pick it up, but I'm not going to do that. It's in the other room. But people have been achieving so much when you read that book through stillness. Stillness, I mean, in my case, I do my day, well, because I've been flying, I've never wondered in the morning when I see people say, well, I don't know if I feel like getting up today or something. You know, when you go fly an airplane, you don't wonder if you're gonna, do I feel like getting up today? You don't do that. You just go. And so I decided if I am my own boss with my own business, I apply what I call a process, which is the same thing, which means in the evening, I know I'm going to do my meditation. I'm going to go and look at the sunrise, etc. What I do every morning. And then what I do as well is make a list of what is really the most important things to be done in that day.
Mhm.
And once I've done the sunrise and did the heart focused breathing and choose my attitude for the day, from there, I don't look at my emails. I don't look at all that. I just get on with what I need to do. And I decided this is what I want to do. And in some ways, it makes myself feeling secure, if you can understand that.
Well, what you're doing, and this is what we don't do a lot when we have repressed emotions, because we don't want to feel them, so we rush. We don't want to feel, so we rush. We don't want to feel, so we rush, right? What you're doing is you're grounding yourself first. And when we ground ourselves, we also will feel some of our emotions. Don't be afraid of them. They're your friends.
That's for sure. I've learned that fact for the last 4 years now.
Yes,
It
excellent.
makes such a difference.
Excellent.
Well, thank you so much, Gail. That has been a wonderful interview. I'm so grateful you came on. Will you let us know where people can find you?
Sure. First of all, I want to say it was a delight to be on your show, and it was a delight to serve you as a coach. You're brilliant, and the fact that you went from airline pilot to resiliency coach and have done it beautifully, I really congratulate you. You can find me on Facebook or Instagram at Coach Gail Jones, and my website is claimyourworthiness.com. And you can also email me at gailjones@claimyourworthiness.com. And there's a free guided meditation on worthiness that I can give you.
Thank you so much, Gail. I
You're
wish
welcome,
you
Ann.
a wonderful, wonderful day.
I wish the same to you.
And I'm so happy you came to do this interview for me. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. It was a joy.